Most people quit at 40%, they hit a wall, and instead of climbing it, they tell themselves it was never meant to be. They mistake fatigue for failure, discomfort for danger. They confuse the burn of growth with the pain of destruction. And so, they retreat. They quit not because they've reached their limit, but because they've reached the limit of their belief. The body screams long before it's truly broken. The mind plays tricks, erects barriers, pleads for comfort. At 40%, your muscles ache, your lungs burn, your will trembles, but your potential is untouched. You haven't tapped it. You haven't even scratched the surface. That's where most people stop, but not you, because if you want to achieve what most never will, you must do what most never can. Go beyond the 40%. Go into the place where your mind begs you to stop and walk forward anyway. This is where greatness begins, not in the easy moments, not in the obvious paths, not when everything is clicking and flowing. Greatness is forged in the agony of effort, in the heat of resistance, in the darkness of doubt. It is born in silence, where no one is watching, and no applause waits. Ask any titan of history, Edison, Carnegie, Disney, Lincoln, they all reached the point where lesser men would have quit. They all stared down failure and chose to keep moving. They did not negotiate with weakness. They did not reason with fear. They made a decision and then they backed it with relentless action. There's a moment right at the edge of breaking where your old self tries to hold on. It whispers all the reasons you should stop. It reminds you of the past, the pain, the comfort you once knew. That voice is a liar. Your limits are not fixed. Your struggle is not a sign to retreat, it's a call to evolve. The Navy SEALs call it the 40% rule. When your mind tells you you're done, you're really only at 40% of what you're capable of. That rule doesn't just apply to physical exertion. It applies to every arena of life, business, relationships, dreams, destiny. How many quit at 40% in their careers right when the next breakthrough was one bold step away? How many relationships die because someone mistook a rough patch for the end, when it was really the beginning of deeper growth? How many dreams go unfulfilled because someone heard no once and took it as truth? Most people quit at 40%. But the extraordinary, the ones who build legacies, go further. They don't crave ease. They embrace the hard. They aren't looking for a way out, they're hunting for the way through. Because they know, pressure builds diamonds, fire tempers steel, resistance builds strength, and pain? Pain is the compass. It tells you where the growth lies. You will never find your true self in comfort. You will never discover your power by playing small. You have to step into the arena, battered and bruised, and say, "This is not the end of me. This is where I begin." Every great transformation begins with pressure. The caterpillar disintegrates into nothing before it becomes a butterfly. The seed must break to sprout. The muscle must tear to grow. So what makes you think your journey will be any different? Stop seeking signs of ease. Stop waiting for the path to open wide. Your future is forged by your willingness to endure, to break through, not break down. Clarity doesn't come before commitment. It comes after. Purpose doesn't shout, it whispers. And only those who are quiet enough, still enough, determined enough, will hear it. You are not here to be comfortable. You are not here to survive. You are here to rise, and rise you will if you choose to step past the 40%. Do not let the pain fool you. The ache you feel? That's potential stretching. That's destiny testing your resolve. That's the universe asking, how bad do you really want it? You say you want greatness, but can you endure the grind? You say you want freedom, but can you master discipline? You say you want success, but can you keep moving when no one is watching? Most people quit at 40%, not because they lack the ability, but because they lack the mindset, the belief, the grit, the obsession. Talent is not rare. Discipline is, vision is not rare. Execution is, desire is not rare. Endurance is, you can have all the goals in the world. But if you stop when it gets hard, if you let the wall win, you'll never taste the life that waits on the other side. The life you want begins when the one you've settled for ends. And that moment comes right after you've hit the wall, right after you hear the lie that says, you're done. That's your invitation, not to stop but to begin again, push again, rise again. Because at 41%, you discover something new, you realize you're stronger than you thought, you realize your limits were just illusions, and once you've gone past the breaking point, you'll never go back to who you were, because now you know you are limitless. But here's the raw, unfiltered truth: when your body screams stop, when your mind starts offering excuses wrapped in logic, you are not done, you are at 40%, that's where most people fold, that's where the masses bow out with trembling legs and call it enough. But for the few who keep going, that's where life begins. See, the 40% rule isn't just a motivational phrase, it's biology, it's psychology, it's the internal resistance that kicks in when comfort is threatened. Your brain doesn't care about greatness, it cares about survival, and survival starts to panic when you're sweating, straining, and staring into the abyss of your own limits. But you weren't born for mere survival. You were built to expand, to become, to defy what yesterday said was possible. And that doesn't happen inside the lines of comfort, it happens when you're bent, broken, bleeding, and still whispering more. Thomas Edison didn't stop after one failed filament, he didn't stop after 10, he didn't stop after 1,000. The man redefined failure as data. He said, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. What kind of mind speaks like that? A mind that never quit at 40%, a man who learned that pushing past breaking wasn't optional, it was the price of transformation, and that price is steep. It costs you your excuses, it costs you your laziness, your distractions, your ego, it costs the shallow comfort of being like everyone else, but in return, it gives you something the average will never touch: control, power, freedom, because past the breaking point, that's where the lies die. That's where the voice that tells you you're not enough begins to choke on its own doubt. That's where you look into the mirror, stripped of every mask, and realize you were the fire all along. But to get there, you must suffer, not mindlessly, not recklessly, but purposefully. Suffering without direction is just torment, but suffering toward a vision, that's growth. That's sculpting. That's the chisel in the hands of destiny, carving the masterpiece of your life. You think Carnegie built steel empires on easy days? You think Ford revolutionized the world because things were convenient? No, they bled into their vision, they bled into resistance. And when everything inside them begged for mercy, they tightened their grip, not because they were fearless, but because their purpose was greater than their fear. And that's what you need: a vision so clear it makes fear irrelevant, a reason so big that pain becomes fuel, because without vision, discipline dies. Without purpose, pain becomes your prison instead of your path. So if you're sitting there, wondering why it hasn't happened yet, why your breakthrough feels so far away, it's not because you're incapable, it's because you keep tapping out at 40%. You stop when it gets heavy, you stop when it gets quiet, you stop when no one's watching. But the greats, they go silent, they go inward, they go through, they train when they're tired, they read when they're broke, they move when the weight is unbearable, and they rise, not because it's easy, but because they chose to become unbreakable. The Navy SEALs, the elite of the elite, live by this rule. They train beyond exhaustion. They're taught to understand that when your body says done, you're not even halfway. They rewire their response to pain, and you can too, because greatness isn't about genetics, it's about mindset. It's about who you choose to become when everything inside you wants to run. So what's your response going to be? When life says stop, do you agree? When failure says quit, do you listen? When pain says you're not built for this, do you kneel? Or do you look pain in the eyes and whisper, watch me? Because there's something sacred on the other side of brokenness. There's a strength waiting to be earned, not inherited, not gifted, earned through fire, through repetition, through setbacks, through days when the only applause is your own breath-keeping rhythm in the dark. Most people quit at 40% because they don't believe they can go further. But belief isn't something you find, it's something you forge, and forging hurts. Steel doesn't beg to be melted, but it must be to become a sword. You want to lead? Bleed first. You want to inspire? Endure first. You want to leave a legacy? Suffer with a smile, knowing that the pain you embrace today becomes the strength you wield tomorrow. You don't rise by pretending to be strong, you rise by staying when it's ugly, by choosing growth when stagnation feels safer, by doing the thing again and again when your mind screams, what's the point? That's the point. The moment you keep going when quitting would make perfect sense. That's when something inside you shifts, something ancient, something primal. You stop looking for permission, you stop waiting for ideal conditions, and you begin to conquer yourself. That's what separates those who change the world from those who just watch it. It's not talent, it's not luck, it's not some mythical secret formula. It's a willingness to go beyond the threshold, to crawl if you must, to cry if you must, but to never, under any circumstance, retreat back to the small version of yourself that begs for comfort. Because that version, it dies at 40%. You are not that version, not anymore. You've lived long enough in fragments, half in, half out, moving just enough to feel busy, but never far enough to feel reborn. You've tasted discipline, but spit it out when it got bitter. You've flirted with purpose, but ghosted it when it asked for commitment. You've glimpsed your potential and turned away when it demanded sacrifice. And now, something inside you is restless, not because you're broken, but because your soul knows you're capable of more. The reason you can't sleep, the reason you wake up with that ache in your chest, it's because the real you, the one buried beneath years of compromise and delay, is clawing to the surface. That version of you doesn't care how hard it is. It doesn't flinch at struggle, it doesn't beg for easy answers, it only wants one thing: freedom. Not the freedom to relax, the freedom to rise, the freedom to live with nothing held back, and that kind of freedom only exists on the far side of your limits. Think about David, not the king, the shepherd, a boy with no armor, no training, no pedigree, just a sling and the kind of courage that gets you laughed out of rooms. But while soldiers trembled in iron, David stood unshaken. In belief, he didn't wait to feel ready, he didn't ask for permission, he ran toward the giant. Why? Because vision makes you bold, because purpose makes you dangerous, because when your mission is clear enough, fear loses its grip. So what's your Goliath? What's the thing standing between you and the life you were meant for? Is it fear of judgment, lack of discipline, the voice in your head that keeps whispering you'll never make it? Good, name it, then run at it. Stop waiting for life to shrink down to your fear. Start expanding into your power. No empire was built by someone who quit it tired. No dynasty was born from someone who sat down when the critics spoke. Disney was fired for lacking imagination. Bezos was mocked for selling books online. The Wright brothers were called insane for chasing the sky, and every one of them was told to stop right around the 40% mark. But they didn't stop, they didn't listen, they kept going. And that's what history remembers, not the talented, not the lucky, but the relentless. And let's make one thing crystal clear: relentlessness isn't about being fearless. It's about choosing to walk through fear like a man walking through fire, knowing he'll get burned, but also knowing that what's on the other side is worth it. You think fire doesn't scare steel, you think the sculptor doesn't crack the marble. Every transformation begins in destruction, every reinvention demands pain, every breakthrough is born in silence, when no one is clapping, and no one is watching, but you keep going, you keep building. You keep pressing, because you're not doing this for applause, you're doing this for the person you swore you'd become. And here's the part no one tells you: the 40% rule isn't just a ceiling, it's a test. Life asks, are you serious? And your response isn't words, it's action. You keep moving, not because you feel like it, but because you said you would. And when your muscles burn, and your lungs heave, and your friends start calling you too intense, you go anyway. Because you've made a decision to stop living like your life is some dress rehearsal, to stop carrying the weight of your unstarted dreams, to stop playing small just to make others comfortable. You've made a decision to become a weapon, sharpened by discipline, forged in discomfort, wielded by purpose. And what happens next? Everything. Because when you go past the breaking point, truly go past it, the world starts to bend. Not because it's easier, but because you're stronger. That's when focus becomes natural. That's when clarity starts to hum through your veins. That's when your actions align so tightly with your vision, it feels like you're being pulled forward by something greater. And you've unlocked the second wind, the deep current, the hidden gear that most never discover, because they quit when it got hard. But you stayed, you breathed through it, you stared into the eyes of your limits and refused to blink. And now you're dangerous, not because you've become someone else, but because you've become who you were always meant to be. You were never meant to blend in, you were never meant to settle for average, you were never meant to live a life of quiet desperation, constantly wondering what if. You were meant to rise, not once, not twice, but relentlessly, because you were built with something the world cannot manufacture: fire, not the kind that warms, the kind that burns away everything that isn't real. And here's the brutal truth: most people die long before they're buried. not because their hearts stop beating, but because they let their spirit wither inside comfort, conformity, and compromise. But not you, not anymore. You've tasted the hunger now, you've seen behind the curtain of your limits. You've realized that breaking down is part of breaking through, and there's no going back. You're done asking for signs, you are the sign. You're done waiting for motivation, you move on discipline. Because motivation is fleeting, it's a spark. Discipline is the flame that stays lit through storms. And when the rain comes, when life pours down with doubt, fear, failure, you don't fold, you ignite. Because every no fuels your yes. Every setback sharpens your edge, every breakdown becomes another brick in the empire you're building. Do you understand what you're becoming? You're becoming the kind of person who finishes what they start. You're becoming the kind of person who shows up especially when it's hard. You're becoming the kind of person who doesn't wait for conditions to be perfect, because you've realized that perfection is the enemy of momentum. And momentum, it's holy, it's how mountains are moved, it's how revolutions begin silently, inside one soul that refuses to quit. Let them doubt you, let them laugh, let them call you obsessed, extreme, relentless is good, let them. Because one day, the same people who called you crazy will call you inspiring, but you won't need their validation, because your life will be the proof that pain can be turned into power. Proof that limits are meant to be broken, proof that legacy isn't something you inherit, it's something you build, moment by moment, battle by battle. And here's what most people miss: the breaking point isn't the end, it's the beginning, it's where the old you dies. And the real you is born, that version of you, the one that keeps promises to yourself, the one that shows up when no one's watching, the one that stays locked in, eyes forward, heart on fire. That version doesn't get tired, it gets sharper. Because once you pass the threshold of pain, a strange thing happens. You stop fearing it, you start welcoming it, not because it's pleasant, but because it's honest. Pain doesn't lie. Pain doesn't flatter, pain reveals, and the person you become on the other side of it is real. The noise fades, the excuses vanish, and all that's left is a clear signal: keep going. You don't owe the world comfort. You don't owe your past self an explanation. You owe the future version of you everything, every drop of sweat, every lonely morning, every silent decision to push instead of pull back. You owe it to the vision that refuses to die, you owe it to the fire that still burns, you owe it to the 1% of people who will look at your story one day and say, if they could do it, maybe I can too. Because when you go past the breaking point, you don't just change your life, you change your lineage, you rewrite what's possible, you draw a line in the sand and say, it ends with me, and it starts with me. No more inherited doubt, no more borrowed fears, no more generational mediocrity dressed up as normal. You're done living by the rules of people who quit on themselves. You're making new rules, new standards, new expectations, not just for success, but for what it means to be alive. And being alive means feeling it all: the pain, the pressure, the pride that comes not from reaching the mountaintop, but from the climb itself. That's why you're here, not for easy victories, but for earned ones, the kind that scar your hands and sharpen your soul. And now that you've tasted the other side of the 40%, there's no going back, not because you can't, but because you won't. You've become something else, something rare, something dangerous. You've become a force. You've become the kind of force that no longer seeks approval. You create your own validation in silence, in sweat, in sacrifice. You no longer wait for someone to hand you the green light, you are the light, and you've learned how to shine, even in the dark, because you've discovered the truth that few dare to face. Everything you're looking for is already inside you. It's not in the next book, it's not in the next coach, course, or podcast. It's in the decision you make right now, to rise, to endure, to build what no one else sees but you. Do you feel that? That's your edge sharpening, that's your power waking up, that's the moment when you stop being a dreamer and become a doer. Most people never reach this place, because most people fold at friction, they stop when it hurts, they turn around when it gets lonely. But you've become addicted to progress, addicted to truth, addicted to becoming better than who you were yesterday, not for applause, not for attention, but because you've seen what happens when you settle, and it made you sick. You've tasted regret, and it's poison. You've lived the lie of maybe someday, and now you're allergic to hesitation. You move different now, you think different now, you refuse to die with potential still in your chest, so you keep pushing, you keep rising, you keep bleeding, sweating, breaking, healing, because that's what builders do. They don't just talk about their dreams, They construct them, steel beam by steel beam, choice by choice, in the cold silence when no one's watching. This isn't about hype. This isn't about hype music or Instagram quotes. This is about honor. This is about self-respect. You don't climb past your limits because it's trendy. You climb because your future is depending on you. Your children, born or unborn, are counting on you to slay the dragons your ancestors couldn't. Because you've realized, the real enemy isn't failure, the real enemy is mediocrity, and you'd rather fail 1,000 times in pursuit of purpose than succeed once living someone else's idea of success. You've chosen the path of the few, the path of fire, the path of transformation, and once you've tasted this path, once you've realized what's possible beyond the 40%, you'll never be satisfied with less again. Not you've crossed a threshold now, and there's no going back, not because you can't, but because you refuse to. You've felt the weight of your own potential. You've heard that voice in the silence, the one that whispers, "You were made for more." And you believed it. Not because someone gave you permission, not because the world applauded, but because something deep inside you finally woke up and said, "This is it. I'm done playing small." And once that belief takes root, everything changes. You stop negotiating with laziness, you stop debating with doubt, you stop tolerating the cheap comforts that used to steal your time and kill your fire. You start acting like your life is on the line, because it is. Time isn't infinite, your window isn't forever. There is a clock ticking over your head, and every second wasted is a second you never get back. So you've started moving with urgency, not panic, purpose. You wake up earlier. You train harder, you study deeper, you execute faster, not because it's trendy, but because it's necessary, because you understand now, your dream is your responsibility, not the government's, not your family's, not your boss's or mentors or anyone else's, it's yours. And that responsibility is sacred. That vision you carry, it was given to you. No one else can see it like you can, no one else can build it like you will, but it comes with a price, and that price is discipline. The discipline to show up when it's boring, when it's hard, when it's lonely, when every voice in your head tells you to quit, but you keep going anyway. That's the moment that matters. That's the moment that builds champions. Not the highlights, not the trophies, the dark hours when no one claps, no one cares, and the only one cheering for you is you. You want to talk about success? It's not glamorous, it's gritty, it's waking up at 4 a.m. while others sleep. It's saying no to temporary pleasure so you can say yes to permanent progress. It's sacrificing comfort today to build a legacy that lasts for decades, and that's what you're doing. You're not just chasing goals, you're constructing a life that echoes. You've stopped asking for easy, now you ask for clarity, you ask for alignment, you ask, what's the next hard thing I need to conquer to become who I'm meant to be? Because ease never made warriors, comfort never built kings, luxury never created legends. The struggle is the sculptor, the fire is the forge, and the more you lean in, the more you learn that your capacity is far beyond what you once believed. You thought you were done at 40%? That was the illusion. Now you know, there's another 60% waiting for the one bold enough to push through. That's why most never make it. They feel the first tremor of discomfort and assume it's the end. But that's not the end, that's the beginning. That's where the mind starts to scream, and you get to say, I'm not done. Not even close. And when you say that, when you mean that, something inside you shifts. You stop chasing motivation, you become the fire. You stop looking for paths, you make your own. You stop being a follower and become the standard, because now you understand, you are the one who breaks the cycle, the one who raises the bar, the one who doesn't flinch when tested, but leans into it. This is what separates the mediocre from the masters. It's not talent, it's not luck, it's not connections, it's grit, it's focus, it's refusal to quit, refusal to slow down. Refusal to let life happen to you. When you were born to shape it, you've taken the reins now, you've stepped into the fire, and you've made a decision. You will not be average, you will not die with your gifts still in the box, you will not retreat from your destiny. You'll drag yourself, crawl if you must, bleed if you have to, but you will finish what you started, because that's who you are now, a finisher, a builder, a warrior, a relentless force of nature that will not be broken. You've gone past the breaking point and discovered there is no limit, only levels, only growth, only the next mountain to climb, and you're just getting started. So now, you stand where few ever reach, at the edge of yourself, where your old identity burns, and something stronger begins to rise. Most people never see this place, they stop at resistance, they quit when it hurts, They let failure define them instead of refine them. But you didn't stop, you went deeper, you met your limits. And didn't run, you stood in the fire until your excuses melted, and what was left was truth, the truth that you are not your fear, you are not your past, you are not your failures, your fatigue, or the voice in your head that says, maybe this isn't for you. You are the one who kept going, the one who kept showing up when nobody noticed. The one who chose growth over comfort, faith over fear, and effort over everything. And now, you're becoming something rare, because let's be honest, most people never really live, they exist, they consume, they wait. And wish. And waste, but truly living, requires blood, it requires tears, sweat, and sacrifice, it demands courage, not just once, but every day, because the world will test you, it will whisper temptations, it will flash distractions, it will hand you 100 reasons to settle for less than you are, but when you've gone past the breaking point, you stop listening, because you've heard something louder than the noise of the world. The roar of your own resolve, that's the sound of a man or woman who has decided, and decision is power, real decision is a spiritual act, it says to the universe, I will not bend. I will not fade. I will not hand over my life to fear. And when you decide at that level, doors open, people shift, paths appear, not because it's magic, but because your energy has changed. You no longer beg, you no longer hope, you claim, you take full ownership, you stop blaming others, the economy, your upbringing, your circumstances. You say, if I was born poor, I die rich. If I was broken, I rise whole. If I was doubted, I prove it wrong. Because that's what greatness does. It doesn't explain itself, it doesn't need permission, it doesn't apologize for dreaming too big, it just moves, relentlessly, deliberately, with eyes locked on the vision and feet planted in discipline, and that vision. It's alive now, no longer a fantasy, it's a mission, and missions don't ask if you're tired, missions don't wait for motivation, missions demand commitment, even when you're scared, even when you're exhausted, even when everything around you tells you to slow down, be realistic, settle down. But realistic never changed the world, realistic never built skyscrapers, cured diseases, or walked on the moon, realistic didn't write the symphonies, didn't build the empires, didn't start the revolutions, it was the unrealistic ones, the dreamers, the fighters, the builders, the ones who heard impossible and said, watch me. And that's you now, you're no longer trying, you're becoming, you're no longer interested in fitting in, you're focused on standing out, you shed the skin of the average, the normal, the familiar. And what's left is someone hungry, someone focused, someone unbreakable. This is the moment when your past becomes irrelevant, because it can't touch who you've chosen to become. This is the moment when discipline becomes your identity, when pain becomes your passport, when effort becomes your currency, and every day, you pay that price, gladly, because now, you don't fear the cost, you fear the cost of not paying it, you know what's at stake, you've seen what happens when people quit at 40%, they live lives of almost, they drown in regret, they grow old wondering what might have been, but not you. You're building something different, not just a career. Not just a body, not just wealth, you're building a legacy. One decision at a time, one early morning at a time, one hard rep, one brutal hour, one battle-hardened day at a time, because each of those moments, stacked, repeated, driven by vision, creates a force so powerful the world can't ignore it. You are becoming undeniable, and no one can stop a person who refuses to be stopped. What happens when a soul decides to never stop? What happens when a person says, I will not die with potential inside me, and means it? History remembers them, because this kind of resolve is rare. It's not built in comfort, it's not forged in praise, it's born in fire. You don't get here by accident, you get here by walking through the storm. Again and again, until the storm fears you, you get here by crawling when your legs give out, by fighting when you have nothing left but your breath, by choosing to keep going, long after your body says stop, and your mind begs you to quit. That's not motivation, that's not hype, that's a decision to go past the breaking point, not just once, but as a way of life, and when you live like this, something changes. You stop being surprised by progress, you expect it. Because you've earned it, you stop looking for shortcuts. Because you know, the long road is the only road worth walking. It's the road of Lincoln, who failed in business, lost elections, battled depression, and still became one of the greatest presidents in history. Why? Because he didn't stop at 40%, he refused to. It's the road of Edison, who ran over 1,000 experiments that didn't work, and still created the light bulb. Because each failure was feedback, each mistake was movement, each setback was a step. It's the road of Ford, who was ridiculed for his ideas, laughed at by those who couldn't see the future he saw, and built it anyway, because the difference between those who succeed and those who stay stuck isn't talent, it's tenacity. The winners aren't always the smartest, they're the most relentless. They don't give half effort and expect full results. They pour themselves in, again and again, until the vision is real, until the world has no choice but to see what they saw all along, and the same power that ran through them runs through you, but only if you claim it, only if you decide that quitting is no longer an option, that average is no longer acceptable, that the old version of you is no longer allowed to lead. Because here's the truth no one wants to say out loud: there is no magic moment, there is no perfect time, there is no guru, no plan, no trick that will replace work. Work when it's hard. Work when it's lonely. Work when you're afraid. Work when no one claps, when no one believes, when no one shows up but you. That's where the separation happens, not in public, in private, not when you're feeling it, but when you're not. And you do it anyway. That's when greatness begins to respect you, because discipline is the ultimate act of faith. It's saying, I believe in a future I can't see yet, and I will build it brick by brick until it stands tall in front of me. So keep going. You may not see it yet, but every early morning, every ignored temptation, every hour of focus is laying the foundation of something unstoppable. You are not falling behind. You are not too late. You are not broken. You are becoming, and that takes time. It takes fight. It takes the kind of inner fire most people never even light, because they turn back at 40%, but you've passed that line, and now, you're not trying to succeed, you're training for it, you're transforming into it, you're breathing it, thinking it, living it, and eventually, that level of effort, that level of conviction, it becomes undeniable, not because the world gave you permission, but because you gave yourself no other choice. This is how legends are made, this is how dynasties begin. Not in spotlight, but in silence, in sweat, in the moments no one sees, but that change everything. There comes a moment in the journey when it's no longer about how far you've come, but how far you're willing to go. The world isn't asking you for perfection, it's asking you for persistence. It's asking, will you keep showing up, even when the applause stops, because the applause always stops, but your purpose must not. That's the test. Not whether you can shine when the world is looking, but whether you can grind when no one is. Most people don't fail because they lack intelligence, they fail because they lack endurance. They give up at mile 20 when the marathon is 26. They stop digging 3 feet from gold, they let temporary pain distract them from permanent reward. But pain isn't a stop sign, it's a doorway, the doorway to growth, to resilience, to wisdom. Those who rise are not those who avoid the pain, but those who use it. They let the weight forge their strength, they let the pressure sculpt their precision, they let the failure refine their fire. Because when the storm comes, they don't run, they anchor. They don't beg the waves to calm, they become the captain. There is no growth in retreat, there is no strength in escape, there is only power in facing what others flee from. You weren't born to play small. You weren't built to blend in, you were made to become something so much more than the world around you would ever dare expect. But to become that, you have to let go of comfort, you have to say goodbye to the version of yourself that only moves when it's easy, that only believes when it's popular, that only acts when there's certainty, because that version of you, that's the 40%, that's the part that settles, that negotiates, that makes excuses, that says, it's too hard, it's too late, it's not meant for me. Burn it. Burn the version of you that hesitates, that doubts, that shrinks, and from the ashes, build someone unshakable, someone who doesn't just talk about vision, but moves with it, lives by it, breathes through it, because success does not respond to wishes, it responds to work, to obsession, to absolute, unwavering clarity, and clarity only comes when you cut through the noise. Stop asking what they think, stop comparing timelines. Stop waiting for permission, you don't need the world to believe in you, you need you to believe in you, so deeply, so fiercely, that the world has no choice but to catch up. This is how revolutions begin, not with noise, but with decision. With one person saying, I will not back down. I will not settle. I will not end my life wondering what could have been. You weren't put here to wonder, you were put here to win, not win over others, but over the voice inside you that whispers, you can't. That's the real opponent, the inner critic, the fear, the hesitation, and every time you push past it, even a little, you reclaim more of your power. You don't need to become someone else, you need to unbecome everything that's held you back, and that is the real journey, not adding, but subtracting, not pretending, but revealing, because the greatest version of you is already within you, it's just been buried. Under doubt, under fear, under years of playing it safe, but not anymore, not if you choose, not if you rise, not if you fight, every day, to go further than the 40% most people call their limit. This is your line in the sand, your moment to say, I do not stop when I'm tired, I stop when I'm done, and I am not done. The moment you decide to go past the breaking point, your entire world shifts, the horizon expands, the impossible begins to look like a challenge, not a wall. You discover that your limits were never fixed, they were only suggestions. You realize that pain is temporary, but pride lasts forever. You learn that every setback, every failure, every moment you wanted to quit, was training you for this exact moment. Look back for a second, not to mourn the past, but to measure your progress. You're standing on a mountain built from all the battles you refuse to lose, but the summit is still ahead, and it's yours to claim. So what does it take to break through when the world wants you to break down? It takes discipline, not just the fleeting kind, but the deep, relentless discipline that turns waking up early from a chore into a ritual, that transforms repetition into mastery. It takes faith, faith not in the easy victories, but in the grind itself, faith in the process, faith in the person you're becoming. It takes a vision so vivid, so alive, that the voices of doubt become background noise. This vision is your compass when the path gets dark, your fire when the cold bites, your anchor when the storms rage. Every great figure you admire, Edison, Carnegie, Lincoln, Ford, they didn't stop when it got hard, they didn't quit at the first failure, they pressed on past exhaustion, past criticism, past despair, because they understood a truth that most ignore. The moment you want to quit is the moment the breakthrough is closest, so when your mind screams enough, your heart must roar not yet. This is the dance of champions, to fight when it's painful, to believe when it's uncertain, to persist when it's exhausting, and the reward, it's not just success, it's transformation. It's becoming someone who no circumstance can break, no failure can define, no setback can stop. You become a force of nature, unstoppable, unyielding, unbreakable. That's the power waiting on the other side of 40%. Keep going, dig deeper, rise higher, because your life isn't over at the first sign of struggle, it's just beginning. You've got what it takes, more than you know. Now, prove it. You stand at the edge of your own limits, staring into the abyss of doubt and fear. The world whispers that you should turn back, that you should settle, that you should accept the easy path. But deep inside, a voice burns brighter than any fear, the voice that says, I am not finished yet. This is where heroes are born. You see, the breaking point is a crucible, a test of who you really are beneath the surface. It strips away excuses, distractions, and illusions. It exposes your raw will, your true character. When the pain claws at you, when the mind races with I can't, when the body begs for rest, that's when your soul has a choice, surrender or rise. Every legendary story in history shares this moment of truth. Thomas Edison tried over 1,000 times before inventing the light bulb, each failure a step closer, not a reason to quit. Abraham Lincoln faced defeat after defeat, yet he kept moving, holding on to a vision of a united nation. Henry Ford revolutionized transportation only after countless experiments that failed miserably. They reached beyond 40%, they broke through the barriers that cage most souls. Now, here's the secret nobody tells you. The pain you feel is not your enemy, it's your ally. It's the signal that you're growing, evolving, pushing boundaries. Every ache, every setback, every sleepless night is a brick in the foundation of your greatness. When your mind whispers quit, reminded of the power you wield when you refuse to give in, this is mental warfare, and you are the commander of your own destiny. To win this war, you must sharpen your mindset until it's unbreakable, feed it with clarity, not vague dreams, but crystal clear visions so detailed they ignite your senses. See yourself victorious. Hear the applause. Feel the joy. Taste the victory. Discipline fuels this vision. It's the daily grind, the small choices made when no one's watching. It's rising early when comfort calls you to stay. It's saying no to distractions that steal your future. Every action compounds, every step forward, no matter how small, carries you past the 40% wall. You must also embrace adaptability. The path isn't straight, it's jagged, unpredictable. Your ability to bend, to pivot, to learn and unlearn. That's your secret weapon. Gratitude sharpens your perspective, it transforms struggle into opportunity, pain into power. Be grateful for the trials that test you, for the failures that teach you, for the nights when doubt knocked hardest, because those are the nights that build steel in your spirit. Resilience is forged here. It's the muscle you build every time you rise again, and remember, success is never just a destination. It's a lifelong pursuit, a relentless climb beyond what you thought was possible, so keep moving, keep fighting, keep believing, because most people quit at 40%, but you were made to go beyond, you were made to break limits, shatter ceilings, and rise like a force no one saw coming. Your breaking point is your starting point. Step forward and own it. You must understand that the journey beyond 40% is not a battle of muscle or stamina alone, it is a conquest of the mind's deepest corners, where fear, doubt, and temptation hide in shadows, waiting for a crack in your resolve. They lurk there, whispering that you've done enough, that comfort is your rightful prize. But comfort is the enemy of progress. Comfort breeds stagnation, and stagnation kills dreams. It's the quiet poison that lulls the average into complacency. Look to the greats, the Edisons, the Lincolns, the Disneys. Each one faced moments when the world said stop. Edison's laboratory was a graveyard of failed experiments. Lincoln's political career was marked by loss and mockery. Walt Disney was told he lacked creativity, was unfit to succeed. Yet, these men understood a truth that the masses ignore: the human spirit is an ocean, not a pond. The tide of effort, when sustained beyond the breaking point, brings treasures unseen by those who retreat early. Beyond 40% is where your identity transforms. You are no longer the person who starts the race. You become the person who finishes it, stronger, wiser, undefeated. The pain you feel is not punishment, it is purification. It strips away the unnecessary, revealing the essence of who you are. This transformation demands unwavering belief. Not just in the possibility of success, but in the inevitability of your own triumph. Belief is the flame that keeps your heart burning when darkness closes in. It's the fuel that propels you forward when every instinct screams to stop. To cultivate this belief, you must feed your mind with the stories of those who refuse to quit. Their legacies are your blueprint. You are their heir. Every challenge you face is a chance to prove your lineage. Clarity sharpens your vision. It's easy to wander aimlessly through struggle, but those who pass 40% have a laser focus. They know what they want so deeply that obstacles become mere stepping stones. Clarity is born from purpose, a purpose so compelling it commands your every action. Discipline then becomes your ally. It's the bridge between dreams and reality. The champions of history did not rely on bursts of motivation, they built habits, routines, rituals that carried them forward, day after day, year after year. Action is non-negotiable. Dreams without action are illusions. The moment you act, you claim your power. Each step, each repetition, is a declaration: I am moving beyond limits. But rigidity kills progress. Adaptability is your survival tool. The path to greatness is never linear. It twists, turns, crashes, and reforms. Those who go past 40% are fluid like water, able to change course without losing momentum, to learn and adjust with relentless curiosity. Gratitude is the secret alchemy that transforms struggle into strength. By appreciating the hardships, the lessons, the growth, you invite resilience into your soul. Gratitude softens the burden, lightens the load, and opens your heart to the beauty hidden in the fight. Resilience is more than endurance, it is the ability to bounce back, to rise after every fall, stronger and more determined. It is the muscle you build each time you face the fire and refuse to burn out. Understand that success is not a finish line but an eternal ascent. It is the choice to keep climbing when others have stopped to rest. It is the refusal to settle for average when you were made for extraordinary. Most people quit at 40%. You are here to go past that breaking point, to dive deeper into the struggle, to find the strength that others never discover. Your greatest battles are not with the outside world but within yourself. Master these battles, and the world will bow to your will. This is your moment, this is your call. Go past 40%, go past the breaking point, and become unstoppable. To go past that breaking point means embracing the pain not as an enemy, but as an ally. Pain is the language of transformation. It speaks to you in moments when your body screams to quit, when your mind conjures every excuse to stop. But listen closely, pain is the forge where greatness is hammered out. When you accept it, you no longer fear it. You harness it, the world will never celebrate comfort. The legends you admire never won from comfort. Henry Ford did not build an empire lounging on ease, he fought through failure, bankruptcies, and doubt. Abraham Lincoln wrestled with depression and defeat, yet pressed on until he redefined a nation. The pain, the suffering, the sweat, that's the price of what you want. And it's a price you must be willing to pay. When you move beyond 40%, you step into a realm of solitude that few dare to enter. This is the lonely mountain where dreams are carved out by the hands of relentless effort. It's a place where distractions fall away, where the noise of the world fades, and you face the purest version of yourself, flaws, fears, and all. Here, discipline transforms into devotion. Not devotion to a goal, but to a way of being. Your mind becomes a fortress, impenetrable to doubt, unwavering in conviction. The small victories you win in this zone build an unshakable foundation. Brick by brick. Each act of persistence is a monument to your inner strength, vision becomes your compass. It is not just a mental image of success, it is a force that pulls you forward with magnetic intensity. When clarity is fused with vision, you don't stumble blindly through obstacles, you navigate with precision, knowing exactly where you are headed, no matter how fierce the storm. This vision is deeply personal. It's not about pleasing others or chasing fleeting trends. It's about a fire burning within you, a reason so powerful that quitting is never an option. Like Thomas Edison, who kept inventing until the world lit up, or Walt Disney, who turned rejection into a global dreamscape, your vision is the blueprint for your destiny, yet, the path is not straight. You will face setbacks, failures, moments when you feel the weight of the world. But these are the very moments that sculpt resilience, the ability to bend without breaking, to fall and rise again with renewed vigor. Resilience is the muscle of the soul, built only through trial and tenacity, in the darkest hours. Gratitude becomes your light. It may seem counterintuitive, but to be grateful for struggle is to unlock a hidden power. Gratitude shifts your perspective, allowing you to see failure not as defeat but as feedback, a necessary step on the journey to mastery. Learning is your constant companion beyond 40%. Every failure, every obstacle, every doubt is a lesson wrapped in disguise. The greatest achievers never stopped learning, they evolved, adapted, and grew. They understood that knowledge is the engine of progress, and humility is the key to unlocking it. When you reach beyond 40%, you realize that success is not about luck or talent, it's about persistence, faith, and the refusal to surrender. It's about becoming a warrior of your own life, battling through the storm, eyes fixed on the horizon. This is your story. The one where you refuse to quit, where you break through limits, and where you emerge not just as a survivor, but as a conqueror. The world awaits the impact of your relentless spirit. Remember, most people quit at 40%. You are not most people. You are destined to push further, to fight harder, to rise higher, go past the breaking point. Your greatness is waiting.